Welcome to the SDA podcast, where we talk with members and other industry experts to explore the latest trends, challenges, and insights in the AEC industry. I'm your host, Stephanie Kirschner, SDA National Executive Director. Join me as we dive into topics such as project management, leadership, and career development, aiming to provide you with valuable insights and actionable advice. Let's get started. All right. Well, hey, folks. With me today is Molly Stewart, and Molly is the Vice President Treasurer of the Administrative Department at Van Sant and Gusler in Norfolk, Virginia. Do I have that right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, great. That's important, but more important to us for this conversation is that she is one of our 2024 Past President's Council Development Grant winners. So I wanted to take a few minutes and just visit with her about her experience now that she's back from Ed Symposium. So I had a few questions I gave her in advance to think about, but we're just going to visit. So the first question on my list today I wanted to talk about was, all right, you're a first-time attendee, you got a scholarship, you're coming. What were you looking forward to? What were you nervous about? Talk about that experience from the time you got the notice and then you're like, oh, I'm going to go and I've never been there before.
Yeah. Okay. So before I was even entertaining the idea of going in and putting in for the grant, I was really excited about the content that was being offered. So that still is my favorite part about the whole thing. But the content covered so many different areas that I felt were really important. Being with my firm for as long as I have, I'm looking at things like transition plans and, sharing fiduciary responsibilities and all of that. So those things are incredibly important. The ideas about the content pertaining to how to deal with people and the changes in the workplace are always important. So that was something that I was looking forward to as well. And then we always have problems with resource planning and trying to nail that down to a science. So I'm always trying to take in information, bring ideas back to the company. So I was most interested in the content that was being offered.
Okay. Yeah. How about coming? I mean, I know you knew some people from your chapter, but as a first-time attendee, I'm sure you've been to other conventions where there have been just massive amounts of people. And
yeah.
And so obviously you experience it. That's not how we are.
No, I was nervous about traveling. I had a little bit of anxiety about it a few days before because I've never traveled that far by myself.
Okay.
It's the idea of being able to travel for something for work was amazing because the furthest I've traveled, I'm in Hampton Roads, traveled for work up to Richmond. That's a couple of hours. That's nothing. And I can drive and I can be home the same day.
Mm-hmm.
So traveling out of town was a little intimidating, but I knew that there would be people from my group, which made me feel a little bit better. Then I get there and it's everybody knows everybody. Oh my gosh. It looks like this insane amount of people, especially like when we stood on the steps and took the picture. I mean, you look at how many people, but people really personally knew each other. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really kind of neat to see how actually small the group felt once you were there. I mean, I sat next to people that have been on the board and people, I had not a lot of conversations with you, but I talked to people that have been, heavily involved in SDA nationally. And that was really kind of neat to be able to just sit right next to them, like, as important as they are,
And that's exactly right. You're absolutely right. I think everybody just like, oh, you're new, come sit with us, come be part of us, right? Yeah. And by having that first time attendee ribbon on your badge, that probably felt a little like sticking out like a sore thumb, but the other side of it is there are people that were just ready and willing to welcome you, I suspect.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's great. So what advice would you tell somebody else, like if they were thinking about it, whether they got a grant or not, like I've never been, I don't know what to expect. What advice would you tell them now that you've experienced that?
So from a personal aspect, I would say get to know some people maybe within your local group. So if you're intimidated by large groups or from traveling or whatever, then maybe you've overcome that because you already know that there's somebody else that's going to be there. At a minimum, I knew Deborah Gill was going to be there at a minimum. And so I'm like,
somebody was going to be there on the other end when you got there then.
Yeah. And that's only if that's a concern for some people. Some people that may not be a concern for. Other than that, I would just say go prepared, to take notes. I'm definitely a note taker. So I had my notebook and I didn't print out all the handouts and that could have been helpful. So I would say, maybe to, do your homework ahead of time. Make sure that I had only printed one set of handouts. I would say other people, if that's the way that you learn making notes on something that's already printed, then that would be a good piece of advice. once I got back, I separated my notes based on each session. And so I was able to go back and consolidate my notes and make sense of my notes after I got back.
Yeah.
So notebook, and that y'all provided the tote bag, which was good because I did not have a bag. So I'm really glad. I'm glad y'all provided that.
People look forward to those bags, so we try to make that as part of the conference experience, a new bag every year. It just is helpful to hold all the stuff.
It is.
We used to print binders of the sessions, and we don't do that anymore. We leave it to people because some people want to print them out and make notes. Others are like, on my computer is fine. Others are using their iPad and making notes that way. So to work for everybody. So that's good.
So however people learn best, just be prepared to take those notes. I am interested in that, the quick and 30 session on the notes.
Oh, the Rocket Book. Yes.
Yes, I really want to look into that because I hadn't heard of it before this meeting or before the SDA conference.
Exactly. We've got a lot of excitement building around that one. So that quick 30 on July 23rd. Check the calendar. Or check for the recording later. All right. So let's talk about the sessions. You kind of hit the highlights of them. Was there one session or a workshop that you found most informational, more inspiring? Like, did you have a favorite?
There were some that did not go the way I thought they were going to go, and it was positive. I'm sure so many people are going to talk about the one on employees and, and the whole DEI piece and making sure that you have a welcoming workplace, for people, and you're cutting people off that, are not speaking correctly and that kind of thing. That was Scott Warwick, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have all the names in front of me, but I did not expect that to go in the direction it went. Like I thought it was going to be, I remember I did this webinar years and years ago about how to deal with difficult people in the workplace. And that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. And that's not at all what it was. And so that was great. So that was a little refreshing. I enjoyed the one on retirement plans, and that was the one I was actually least looking forward to initially, because I'm like, I already know about retirement plans.
Right.
And I had never heard of a PEP before, so that was good. And then going back over the different types of fiduciaries, which ones take full responsibility and which ones don't. So it's a 5-0 whatever, I don't know. That was good information, because then I'm like, oh yeah, I don't remember. Is my financial advisor this or is he that?
Right.
Because sharing fiduciary responsibility is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed, Deborah talking about succession planning and trying to get a plan in place for external transitions, which is not something my firm's ever done. But, it seems to be that's a lot of what's happening these days. People are selling outside of even the industry and talking about how there's like a 5 to 10 year runway to make sure that your firm is positioned well to be able to get the best, bang for its buck. And then, of course, I found it very interesting to hear about the different voices and my different brands. That actually almost made me a little emotional when I was getting feedback from the people that I work with on how they actually saw me, because I don't see myself that way. So it's kind of reassuring and really nice to hear those things. Kind
of hard to hit that send button with that text, wasn't it?
I'm like, which person's going to respond and who do I really want the feedback from, even if it hurts? I don't, when we were going around raising our hands, I had sent it to the president, who's my direct supervisor. And he joked with me. He's like, actually, he wasn't joking. He's like, Molly, I'm not doing your work. If you have to be answering these questions, you answer them. I'm like, no, I'm supposed to ask you. He's like, oh, okay, give me a minute. So that was kind of funny. He was giving me a little bit of a hard time.
Pushing back, huh? Like a good leader would. Like, they're going to put it right back on us. Yes. I thought Scott Waldron brought a lot of really valuable information on so many fronts, made us all think hard. And he did it in such a way that I think people left really energized and to go back and have those conversations, even in the offices, to get people to think differently. And that's a good thing. That's why we do it. So you kind of hit the, what resonated with you, and the being a trend that we weren't familiar with. So you got some exposure to that. What do you think was the most useful for you bringing it back to the office, to your firm?
So I'm most eager to start doing some work around the stuff that Julie was talking to us about strategic planning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times we are not doing intentional planning, it's more reactionary planning. hey, we are starting to notice that DoD work is drying up a little bit. And so we need to diversify our work and start pursuing these other markets. And so it's more reactionary, and I want to be more intentional about what we're doing. I like the way that she helped outline, how to start tackling that. It's something that I've been interested in for years. And there's one person, he's one of the vice presidents here, who's run his own firm. And has some outside experience from larger firms and then from firms similar to our size, where he could help guide me.
Mhm.
But that's still from 10 years ago when he was doing his strategic planning. And so it's nice to have a fresher take on it. And that's what I'm most interested about trying to bring back and provide to my company.
Good. Well, I think strategic planning is always a critical element.
Yep.
I'm glad we were able to bring you something that was of value. So talk about the grant itself, how it impacted you. Just talk about the PPC grant process
Yeah.
and all of that.
So the process was really great. I was really excited to see that there was an opportunity for a grant, and I really felt like I didn't stand a chance because I don't know how big this community is and how many people were applying for it. I really took my time responding to the questions, and there were some questions which were good, but they were the same questions, or I felt like my answers would have been the same as what they've been for women in this industry for years. How did you overcome, or how did you get to where you are? And I'm thinking, well, I overcame, nothing but all these men leaders that, only saw me as a secretary, and I knew I was more than that. And I'm like, no, I don't, that's the same old story everybody has. And so I wanted to be, I like the word intentional. I wanted to be very intentional with my responses. I wanted to look at what y'all were talking about and how that could impact me. And so that's how I responded. I'm looking forward to this particular, and actually I should go back and review my answers to see if the things that I was most trying to seek and gain from it is actually what I did gain, or if I gained something different than what I was initially looking for. That would be an interesting exercise. But I went through 4 drafts of responding. And I'm very grateful for the grant. Our company, because of, and I'm hearing this everywhere, Greg Hart had talked about it, how stuff is stalling. And I've been in another conference since then, an ACEC conference, and it's the same thing. Work is being put on hold right now. And so here we are. We thought we were going to be here, but now we're 6 months out. And so because of that, our company has put a hold on any excess spending. And I feel as a leader that I have to lead by example. So I didn't feel like I could go to a conference in Colorado on the company's time when I'm telling people that we can't do the company picnic right now and things like that. So then I would have been fronting it myself, and and I'm trying to fix a couple of things around my house. And so I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to go. And so I'm really excited that I was given this opportunity. I was able to go. It was a big growth thing for me, being able to travel on my own and to do it professionally really made me feel good about myself.
The application itself isn't hard, and I'm glad it was interesting. It's interesting to hear you say that you did several drafts, which means you were really giving it some thought. And so it's not something you just want to slapdash put together an hour before the deadline or anything like that.
The questions were easy. It's just I wanted to make sure that I was going to be getting something out of it and that I deserved it. So I wanted to take my time with it. And so, yeah, I there were 4 potential questions I think we could have answered. I think it was 1 or 2 pages full of responses, and that was including me putting the question in there. So, I mean, it really was not long,
right,
at all. So I enjoyed the exercise of it. I really did.
Good. Well, obviously your answers resonated with the jury, so there you go. Worked out really nice. So let me throw you, I don't know, maybe it's not really a curveball, but okay. We talked about the sessions that impacted you and what you want to work on. And you've met the SDA community in a different level. So from outside of your chapter, and now you've kind of met I'll call it the national conglomerate of people, not all of them, of course. So how do you see yourself moving forward now in SDA as a result of this experience? Is anything going to change for you?
So I'm enjoying getting more involved in my local chapter. I'm on Marcom and bylaws doesn't really have a lot going on. And by the way, Marcom is not my area, which is kind of neat because it's something that I'm growing in, right? It's not something that I typically do
Stretch,
here.
good for you.
Yeah, so that's been interesting, and I've been trying to be more engaged in that. I was trying to be more engaged in that before, but it's neat because now that I've connected with other people and I'm seeing things that other chapters are posting, or the national, chapter or SDA National is posting, then I'm piggybacking off of some of those things, and it's helping to create this pipeline of ideas, which I think is good for trying to get our name out there. Of course, I'd love to get more people to join our local chapter. It seems it's so hard. I don't know why that's such a struggle.
I don't mean it's me.
I really, really believe in constantly trying to expand your personal and professional networks and continuing education. And I'm not sure if people are just thinking about other things or if they don't see the benefit in that. And so I, of course, would like to bring more members to the chapter. I have done some soft outreach, but I haven't gotten anything, I haven't been aggressive with it, let me put it that way. And so I haven't gotten anything out of it.
Well, let's face it, none of us are, we'll call them salespeople, right? Like that's not what we do for the most part. And so that is another stretch when we're asking people to reach out. And so those relationships that we have outside of our firm are really those first lines. And it takes time. Most people don't say yes right away. It's like anything else you're trying to sell. So just keep at it.
So one of the areas that I have enjoyed, well, besides expanding on Marcom and trying to be better at that and learn from that, is, I've been in the industry for 20 years. And so I have contacts, and not all of my contacts are great, but, whether or not it's, who your professional liability, insurance broker is, or, I don't know, the bank guy that, or we were dealing with somebody with, a particular contract and they helped us with some guidance on that, like the FAR. Absolutely hate the FAR. If you find anybody that loves the FAR, let me know, because I'd love to meet this person. But, it's trying to bring those contacts together so that they can help educate people in our industry that are still trying to figure certain things out. Because even though I've been doing it for 20 years, I have to go to my professional liability people often. I'm like, hey, this is written kind of funny. Can you help me with this? And so I've been enjoying trying to help with the education piece of that and bring people in that can speak for our local events.
Good.
I'm hoping to continue to do that.
Super. Got you engaged. That's great. Well, if you want some more Marcom exposure without having to make a huge commitment, feel free to jump on the national, Marcom team, because you'll get exposure to some other tools that you might take back and utilize. So, I'm not saying you have to do that right away, but obviously we all have bandwidth, but sometimes serving on a national committee opens your eyes at the chapter level, if you will. There's some interplay there. So that's a possibility too. So, all right. So what else, closing thoughts, like what else do people need to know about EDS from your perspective? Like why come next year? Hopefully you'll be there next year.
So I think that if there's something in it, no matter what it is that you might be looking to get for everybody. So if you're looking to learn how to network better or just expand your network, I think that's great. That was something I wasn't necessarily looking for, and I got. That's not why I was initially going. But expanding my network and becoming a little more comfortable starting conversations, that was something that I thought was very beneficial from this experience. And then, again, all of the different things that y'all talk about, all of the topics, I think y'all did a great job, covering so many different areas that are important to our industry. And the location was beautiful. Oh my goodness. It was amazing.
Yeah. What's not to like about Colorado Springs? I mean, there's some great stuff other than the thin air.
So yeah, I think, people just need to have an open mind and think, okay, so what could I get from this? Even if it's not what's printed on the agenda, there's so many other things. It's an opportunity to go and, represent your company. It's an opportunity to go and meet a potential resource that can help you with something. I talked to several people that gave me ideas about things and told me I could talk to them and they could help, give me some tidbits on how to tackle something that I'm struggling with. I mean, that's great. That's the whole reason I joined SDA back in the day, was so that I could create a network and people that I could ask questions to.
Well, now you've got a broader network and you can just throw those questions out on the discussion forums and people will answer you, probably names that you might not even recognize beyond, because they might not have been at the conference, but they're out there as well. So you just cast that line out there and see what happens. And I'm sure you'll
Yep.
get an answer. And if not, let me know and I'll help you. We'll find somebody to get connected to. All right. Well, thank you for taking a few minutes and just visiting with me. I appreciate that. Thank you for listening to the SDA podcast. We hope you found today's episode insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with your friends and colleagues. To learn more about SDA, check out our website at www.sdanational.org.